This is Back Roads of Illinois server to farmers and ranchers in central Illinois and the Midwest. This is Back Roads of Illinois server to farmers and ranchers in central Illinois and the Midwest. We're glad you're here on today. I'm Cesar Delgado. I'm with Matt Clark from Terrain Ag today. Matt is the head of Terrain Ag in Buller, Kansas. Matt explained to us about the outlook for the grains markets and inputs with the farm economy for us. This been Back Roads of Illinois. I'm with Matt Clark from Terrain Ag today. Matt is the head of Terrain Ag in Buller, Kansas. Hi Matt, how are you and welcome to join us again.
Hi, Caesar. It's great to be back on the Backroads, Illinois. Thank you for asking me. I'm doing all right. I wish our grain markets were doing better, but it's good to kick off the year nonetheless and had a little break. Now it's time to roll up sleeves and get back at it.
Matt, let's start with our conversation about the farm economy for right now. What is your thoughts on this farm economy?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're off to a bit of a tough start for 2026. There's no way around that. In some ways, the cattle market had kind of a shock to end 2025. Most of that market has recovered a little bit, so that's good. Not all the way recovered, but we've seen some improvement there, at least on some prices. So for your cow calf guys, they're doing okay still. Probably some losses up chain. But the real struggle right now is on the grain side, as your listeners are aware. So not only was 2025 a struggle, we started off 2026 with a update from the USDA that was probably a little more hard than what nearly all of us thought. So you had a scenario where corn production went higher. Most everybody was thinking it would go a little bit lower. Soybeans as well, and as a result, we have a lot of stocks to work through in 2026, and the prices they're tough. There's no way around that. Wheat's in that same bus too in terms of being difficult on prices. So from a farm economy standpoint, we're starting pretty tough, and you see it when you're out driving, kind of around in some of the grain areas. Just kind of hear it when I'm talking with our customers or the customers of Farm Credit, and two, you see it through some of the, I would say, telling data, such as tractor sales or combine sales being very, very low, historically low, actually. As a result, I would say we're starting off 2026 pretty tough.
Do you have any concerns about these things are looming in the farm crisis and the horizon for this year still?
Yeah, I think if I turn to 26 and when I've just kind of been meeting with people and talking through where we're at, I am still concerned. Again, I think for that, to kind of separate some of our bigger commodities, I think for your cow calf guy, they're doing okay. Hog guys have started to turn the corner. They're doing all right. There's some current concerns around on dairy, which my colleague Ben Lane has talked about, but calf prices have been good for them. That's helped. The concern still on the grain side as I go into 2026 is still pretty high. So when I've kind of stepped back and talked with producers, what I've done mostly is just try to lay out kind of what the cash flow scenario is going to be with government payments and then with their remaining grain sales. So if you think about here in about a month and a half or so, we'll get the farm bridge assistance payments. That'll be some money. Again, probably not enough to make everyone whole, but again, helpful. So we'll get some money there. There's a potential for some of the supplemental disaster relief program payment 2 money to come in later in the year. Then you'll have some of the benefits of the kind of the larger of the two ARC PLC payments from crop that we'll get in probably October-ish. of 26. So you kind of start with those, some baseline payments that we should get, which is good. And then we'll interweave in what we got left of the grain sales. And when you do all of that together, it's still probably a non-profitable 2025, but at least we can kind of start planning through what a cash flow situation looks like and get a better understanding of what those price points would be profitable for whatever remaining crop we got left from 25 harvest. Again, it will take something to drive those prices higher to get to profitability. That could be a number of things. But at this point, I do think it would take a little bit of a, I hate to use the word black swan, but it would take some sort of shock to the system to really get net prices all the way back there. And that's difficult. And I want to empathize and acknowledge that that's a hard conversation to have, but it is a necessary conversation on the grain side of this. For your diversified person that's got some cattle, maybe they could feed some of that on the farm. That might be a solution too. I'm just kind of trying to think about some cash flow differently with that farm. So there's that option as well.
What is your thought on the farm bridge payment? Really quick math.
Oh man, quick math. uh, I think when I do it for kind of the central states here, what I'm just going to call the Corn Belt states, you're around $40 or so an acre. Now that's a weighted. If you think about corn, beans, wheat, that's weighted. You're somewhere in that neighborhood. Obviously, that's going to help. There's no way around that. It's very helpful for individuals who have higher cash rents and or maybe younger and they've still got a larger debt stack. It's probably not enough to push and cover everything. It's probably not. Could be in that ballpark, but kind of when we've done the quick math, so to speak, usually the hole is a little bit bigger than that. Now, if you don't have cash rent, maybe you've got all your land paid for, maybe you're not very levered, whether that's equipment or operating notes or whatever that looks like. Or maybe you have really big yields or some combination thereof. Maybe it's enough to kind of help push you over the edge to profitability, but it would still be pretty tight across the board, kind of from what we've seen. So we're very thankful for it. It's going to help, especially in kind of the Corn Belt area. Obviously, it's going to be an improvement. It's going to provide sort of this temporary gap here to give people an opportunity to kind of understand where they're at with their cash flow. Gives you a little bit of relief, and then you can kind of plan backwards in terms of how much grain do I have left? What are my needs? Where do I got to price this grain at? How long can I hold it to get those prices? You can kind of start having those conversations with your bankers, with your farm credit officers, with your tax accountants. You can start to have those conversations. So very thankful for it. It will help out in the countryside.
Of course, it's pretty tough for farming.
Yeah, I would agree with that right now. It's been a 25 was a tough year, and we're starting off 26 also going to be tough for now. So it is definitely one of those times where we've got to be intentional. We've got to have our marketing hat on the whole year. Got to really understand where we're at, where we need to go. There's probably not a lot of fat on the bone left to cut in terms of prices or costs. There's probably just not a lot of that left. Maybe there's some that we can do, or maybe we can kind of rethink operations to help a little bit. But yeah, it's starting out tough, and it's going to be a hard year, but it's also going to be one of those years where we'll learn a lot. We'll make it through it. Farming's had many of these years before. We're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to think through it. We're going to do the math. We're going to do the cash flows. We're going to get back on the train of thinking through all the disciplines that we can to make it work, and we'll be all right. Believe that. Yeah.
Okay, the corn prices are currently unstable. We have some concerns about it. Other hand, Soybeans markets are challenging for right now with China, but how do you explain to your customers who have a choice between the economic and the beans markets?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So if you think about individuals that have a traditional corn bean rotation, right now it's very challenging to decide which of those two is you want to be more heavy on. Now obviously there's an agronomic side that all of them are going to every individual farmer is going to think through the agronomic side what they can. Say this one carefully, but if you do if you kind of when I work through the math, it seems again like it would be a year where we're going to have more corn acres and we're going to have bean acres. It just seems more favorable on that side. Not every farm will follow that because every farm's got their own agronomic thing. They're going to have their own acres. They're going to have their own cost structures. But from an aggregate national level, it seems that way. We're coming off of a year where we have record yields for both, which again makes it challenging to kind of try to weigh those two things. But again, stepping back, thinking about your farm, thinking about your agronomic needs, thinking about your cost structure needs, I would say this, regardless of your decision, whether it's to plant more corn, whether it's to plant more beans, um, both of them have many concerns, frankly, at the moment in terms of market drivers, things that could help seem less, not I want to say less likely, but they seem like it would be hard to see something really, really change either market unless there's a black swan event, whether that's here or maybe South America or maybe something even bigger with China for soybeans. That also seems improbable. But nonetheless, if you just take it for what it is now, roll it out, it's going to be hard. So what I'm telling individuals are you've never grown a crop by not planting it. You're going to plant it still. Be wise, get it for what you can do in terms of costs, but you're going to have your marketing hat on all year. It'll be a 24/7 every day time to think through your marketing. You have to be you have to be very, very clear on what your goals are, what your targets are, and you have to be able to execute at any moment. Because let's say we do get some rally because there's some sort of scare, or there's some sort of major fundamental shift in one of these crops, you'll have to be quick to pounce on those marketing opportunities to protect yourself and your farm. And so it's going to be one of those years where the marketing hat is on all the time, regardless of whether you're more heavy beans or whether you're more heavy corn. There isn't a silver bullet at the moment for either. So it's going to be one of those years on the corn and bean side. Farmers, again, I want to stress farmers have been through this before. I've delivered a similar message like this before several times. And so it is what it is, and we're just going to work through it. It's what we've done in ag. We're going to work through it. But it's going to be one of those years where management skills are going to be tested to the maximum. And so I think starting out the year, that's where we look at it. Part of that, to your point, Caesar, is working through all of your corn and bean costs, all your soybean costs, thinking through the agronomics, making the decision of what you're going to plant, and then having your marketing hat on based on that.
How about what is your final thoughts about this year's markets, Matt?
Yeah, I think when I kind of started 2026 and started thinking back through kind of where we are, trying to take an assessment of big picture thoughts, I would say this: the year didn't start out like we were hoping, at least on the grain side. We got a report that was largely unfavorable to specifically corn and soybeans, and the wheat markets have struggled for some time now. The cattle side is still doing okay. They've recovered quite a bit of kind of that initial drop that they saw in kind of the back part of 2025 or the last part of 25. They've recovered some of that. Cow calf guy still looks okay. Feeder guy's probably still going to lose some money, I would say, at this point, but maybe they could work around that. It's the grain side that's lagging at least here in the Midwest. California and the West Coast is maybe a different discussion, but for our listeners here, it's the grain side that's concerning, not the cow calf, probably not even the hog or the dairy guy. Maybe there's some concerns there about milk prices declining recently, but it's the grain side. I don't, as I sit here today, I don't think there's a silver bullet on corn or beans. Both have question marks. Both have good stories inside of consumption or total use. Both have good stories. Maybe there's still concerns that the export number for the USDA is too high on soybeans. It's possible we could talk about that. Maybe there's some concerns about feed on corn, sure. But overall, the consumption side of those stories is both positive. It's really the production side. And when I think about the market for 2026, I think consumption is going to be fine. It's can we work through these big ending stocks? What sort of production are we going to have in 2026 for corn and beans? And will we get a shock somewhere? Will we get a weather shock here in the US? Will we get a weather shock in South America or Canada, anywhere? Are we going to get a weather shock or a supply shock or some sort of event that really pushes it through? Barring that, again, it's going to be a year where marketing is going to be tough. We're really going to have to sit back. We're going to have to assess where we are from a cash flow standpoint. We're going to have to think through the bridge payments. We're going to have to think through any SDRP money that we got. We'll have to think through the ARC and PLC money, make our estimates on those, and then work backwards on the remaining grain that we got to market and know our prices on it and be able, willing, and ready to execute whenever we get the chance on any of those for whatever reason, whether it's a supply side thing here, whether it's a supply side thing in South America, any of those sort of events, those shocking events, I think is what it would take to push us into a place where we could market some of this profitably. And that's especially true for the more leveraged farmers. Of course, there's always going to be some that marketed well and they maybe didn't have the leverage, and so they're sitting a little bit better. But for those that still have it to market, still have cash flow needs, it'll be definitely one of those years that we're just going to have to work through it. And it's a hard start to 26. It is. It's a hard start, but in ag, we're used to that. To be blunt, we're used to it. We've been there. It's not the first time that we've started the year thinking, hey, this is going to be tough. We've the most part managed through those, and this will be one of those years where our management hats are going to have to be really, really strong. It's kind of my thought beyond maybe a little bit of your question of the markets too. It'll be a managing year where we're tested on that.
Thanks, Matt. It's been my pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you, Caesar. Always love hearing from you.
This is Matt Clark from Terrain on back roads of Illinois. I am Caesar Delgado. You have a good day.